how do we love others in a way that doesn't condone their behavior, but yet we don't get labeled as intolerant because Jesus says you've tolerated this.
Right.
There's a balance there. How do we, walk through that?
And it's really important that we get this right. First of all, when you look at what Jesus is saying about Jezebel, he's not even saying, you are just condoning what she's doing. What he's saying to them specifically is you are tolerating her teaching this. All right, so she was acting as a prophetess who was purporting to speak on behalf of God and leading people astray. So that's like one level, and there's no sounding intolerant about that. You don't have to worry about sounding intolerant there because it doesn't matter if they think you're intolerant because that's like a clear issue of truth right there. And again, it's Jesus talking about how he's protecting his church. In the case of someone like if I just know someone, my neighbor, and we're having conversations, and I find out that they're gay, or I find out they're living with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there are some things that I can do to show love, and at the same time not appear to be condoning it. I think first off is we have to be really careful when we're talking about sexual sin in particular. As a conservative church, or as the conservative church, so not just Reading Christian, we have this tendency to kind of dwell on homosexuality, and to decry homosexuality and stand up for traditional marriage and all of those things. We need to be for traditional marriage. I just spent a long time talking about that. But if we're going to talk about homosexuality, we need to talk about heterosexual sin as well. And we need to talk about pornography as well. We need to talk about not having a high enough view of marriage as well. We need to make sure that we're not just singling out this one sin that we feel safe about doing.
Right.
Because it's easy for me to stand on a platform and to decry homosexuality, because I can be pretty sure, we're, for the most part, we're not struggling with that all that much in this room. And so it's easy for me to point my finger out there and forget that there are sexual sins that take place among people who make Reading Christian or any other church their home. And so we need to be careful about how we approach that. Because it's when we start getting really fixated on one aspect of sexual sin, that's when we do come across as intolerant.
Right.
Because we're not propping up marriage. We're cutting down other people. And so we need to be lifting up marriage and talking about God's ideals rather than just decrying this one kind of subset of culture that we don't like.
It's more of what am I for versus what am I against.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Right. Secondly, I think one thing that we forget is that even if you take the worst sinner out there, they're made in the image of God. They are an image bearer of the creator of the universe, just like I am. And as an image bearer of the King, they deserve some respect. And the problem comes when I try to address sin in a disrespectful manner. And that, I think, has done a lot of harm to the cause of Christ, because we just don't give people the respect that they're due. Thirdly, I think as we talk about the way that we approach people who are caught up in sin, we need to remember that I can talk to them, and maybe I can even convince them that their sexual sin is wrong. But if they don't know Jesus, I've not accomplished a whole lot in their life. Right. I maybe have given them the opportunity to have a better relationship somewhere down the road. But at the end of the day, they're still lost. And I think we as believers sometimes think so much about how we can get non-believers to act like believers
Right.
than we do seeing how non-believers, God can transform them into believers. And
Behavior modification.
Yeah, and so we really need to guard against those three kind of misconceptions of how God would have us interact with people who don't know Him. Because it's when we veer into some of those things, then yeah, we just flat come across as intolerant jerks.
Right.
And the things that people say against the church, a lot of times are deserved because we've not treated people with respect. We've just been worried about behavior and not worried about eternity.